So I won't jump in right away, but how many people are IT heroes here? You know what I mean? Like when shit happens, you get called and it disrupts your day. For reals, how many people are heroes? You put on your cape, that's invisible, but yes, lots of heroes? No, really? All right. But you're here in the evening, so obviously your priorities are wrong. Yeah, right? Right? This is my priority. So I rarely do evening talks, but community stuff I focus on. The circle over the middle child is my daughter. I can't move that circle. But they are all wearing GitHub stuff. No, they know she's my favorite. Yeah. Yeah. I was always hoping for a girl, and then it happened like 6 years after the boys, so they know. Yeah. So I'm just going to be very pragmatic as we go through. I'm a little dark just to prepare you for it. I'm not going to focus on myself. I do a lot of startup work, VC work, a few boards here and there, board for this company too. And I just help make products. And at theScore, we're focusing on advancing SRE practices. But the purpose of this, and I'm going to try to educate here, nothing that you see is what you're doing today. Everything that you're doing today is wrong, and I'm going to prove it. Okay, so I just set the bar really, really high. Confidence in production versus confidence for production. Today, we spend our money in prod. Everybody knows it. We put out fires in prod, but why are they happening in the first place? So we're going to go down that path. Here are 3 principles that you need to follow for every company so that you don't do shit wrong. The CIO's principle should be you may not change existing services of machines. And if you're a DevOps person, you'll figure this out. If not, ask me. The second one, no access to shared environments. We're going to explore this today. So all this kubectl stuff, all this things that you're doing, when it comes to shared environments, let's work out how we don't need to do that anymore. And again, it's going to be pretty complicated, but we'll only focus on this. They are all tied together. You can't achieve one without the other. All 3 of these are required. And then the last one's really important. All the value of an engineer. Every single person here, life sucks when you're a frontline IT person. It really does suck. Especially if you're good, it sucks more if you're good, because then everybody's like, yeah, you know what you can do. You can fix in 2 minutes instead of 14 hours. So deliver that with a degree of separation for your harmonious life. Like if every fire comes your way because you're good, you shouldn't be punished for it, and the system and the practices are wrong. I'm not going to go into this one too much. That's a different talk, but we'll do the second one. I'm going to go into how everybody sells to you on LinkedIn right now. If you're familiar with APMs, I listed the ones that matter. And if anybody's from another one here, don't be offended. And everybody's talking about full stack observability. Everybody puts the context and definition of full stack observability. Totally wrong. Full stack observability isn't about application layers and infrastructure layers. Not at all. It's about, well, I won't answer that yet. Maybe I'll actually go through it. So yeah, IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, logs, telemetry, all that shit. You might use Grafana, you might use whatever you have. I've listed off the ones that are capable of doing something better, and we'll get into that. But none of them do confidence for production. Not a single one. None. They don't know how to even sell it. And I'll try not to move the mic away from my face. So there's a dimension that's missing, and I'm going to ask somebody to try to guess what that is. They're not selling it from this angle. The market is completely missing it. And the definition of FSO is completely wrong to make your lives better. What dimension do you think is missing? Like you have all the layers, but what's actually missing? Where are they targeting observability to run? It's all in prod, right? How many here have non-production spend to cover all their development environments? No one? Seriously? What? 2? Okay. Yeah. So that's where this spend should be, and we'll get there, and then you're not going to need your access. We're going to go through it. I've achieved this at different organizations. Okay, so this is what it's called. It's called observability-driven development. It's when you put the APM and use cases for development in non-production. Stop thinking of production. It ruins your life. The reason you haven't heard of it is basically 2 to 5 years or more, actually 5 to 10 years before observability-driven development actually advances. I'm working with some of the startups that do this, and we'll actually show some of them today. I'm actually going to go right after this, make you really sad, and then we're going to fix it. So if we do observability-driven development, you're not going to have business pressures. Your mental pressure is going to go down. I don't know how many people here have had really shitty days, sweat out their shirts because everything bombed. You're going to have proactive insights for prod. How many people know that prod's going to break before it breaks? Okay. You have some superpower? Okay.
I have experience.
Okay, so superpower. You know, there's hurdles on this. Investments are production because it's user experience. But you can actually get user experience before you go production. It really sucks when it's in production. Really, really sucks. And again, they just don't have the experience. None of them are going this way. I mean, I've talked with some of the CEOs of these companies. I'm like, dude, you really need to teach them how development works and start going after that market. But they're having challenges on that front. So I'm going to show you what reality in production looks like. This, I don't know if anybody's seen this one, but here's the hero, pulls out the sheep, and yeah, that happens again. Oh, shit. This is prod. This is how we do observability. This is how SRE practices are sold. This is how we operate, and it sucks. It really does. How do I stop that? Okay, so let's go into in production confidence. If anybody wants that video, let me know. The norm today is lose weight. If you're looking to lose weight, take an SRE job. It's fantastic. Your personal time draw, you'll notice there's Z's. It's usually evenings and time that nobody's using around because people are scared shit's going to break because they don't know shit's going to break. Frontline stress, I don't know if you have Slack, but trust me, when you have a P1 and you have Slack, you're going to like 52 messages read and you're like, just shut up. I'm trying to fix it. AI supported. Oh yeah, let's get lots of AI supported shit. Some generative AI shit too. But the reality behind that is if it doesn't have context before it goes to prod, you're broken anyways. It doesn't help you. So it's a lot of sources that are just stressing you out and you go, why did this break? Don't worry, I'll give like context to why we're here. Culture, we all wear capes. I've worn a cape before. Anytime shit broke, fly me out. I'll go to another country, fix that shit. Come home and be like, yeah, that's right, I fixed it. Then she'd be like, yeah, your kids don't know who you are. Okay, that sucks. Ping pong causation. How many people hate ping pong when you're like, it's the network? It's not the network. It's not. Oh, you sure? Yeah, we found the cause. Okay, great. I don't know how many people have ping pong triage or ping pong causation. How many people? All right, yeah. This sucks because everybody hates everybody in this circumstance. Now, I will go to the dark side. You can lose your life too. This makes life suck. It really does. And I'll go into it. This talk is dedicated to remember I lost, suicide. This shit, if it's not managed, is dark. Everybody here is trying to make it better, but the reality of the circumstance is your front line. Hospital workers get managed properly. They get care, they get taken care of. But IT, SRE, DevOps, we save businesses, which technically save lives because you're making a living for your family, right? But they don't get the care that they need and nobody sees the pressure they're under. So that's why the market's not fixing. Okay, so if I have for production confidence, which I'm going to define and show you how to do it, I'm actually going to give you the entire roadmap to achieve it. Literally like 9 months of work that you have to do, but you can do it. So there's a high initial draw. There's 9 months of work to turn the entire program and organization around. You're going to be ready for the production stuff because you know what it is, you know what's happening, and you know why it happened. And no, you don't need to log in because that's against the principles of DevOps. Accountability, super clear. No more ping pong. This shit broke. We know why it's broken. That goes to the right person. Go and fix it. You know your shit. Culture. I didn't find really a good image that looks like a narcissist, but it's just supposed to be you love what you're doing and who you are, not that you're narcissistic. And no, it's not an Elon joke. AI insights. This is where the shit's broken. This is what you need to do to fix it. We don't have that today. It's all different correlation of all different services because we're doing it all wrong. And then you go, oh man, he talked a lot of shit. How do I start? So I'm going to go into each of these, and I've actually taken screenshots from ours because we've been fixing it. We've been changing it here. So when you have an incident, you need a response platform. If you don't have an incident response platform, it doesn't make any sense. There's no point having alerts that don't engage the right person and do not ping each other because you just woke up for no reason, even though you can do nothing. That really is terrible. Production must be paged. Non-production should be paged if it's serious, because this is where observability driven development is. You need service levels in non-production. Again, Git flow, like this links to production releases, but then non-prod becomes important because if you're actually running Git flow and GitOps correctly, every environment progresses to each other. You break one of them, it's recorded, so I won't use bad words. It's all linked. You break everything. And then, you know, those that are, who can fix it, that actually know what's wrong can actually do so. And the people who are wasting their time won't be engaged, which is great. Yeah, so that's the dimension that's missing. We're not doing non-prod today. We're just doing prod. So, oh yeah, the environment drifted. Oh yeah, non-prod was down, so I didn't test it. Yeah, well, that sucks. SLOs for non-prod. I'm giving you some insights here. Right size first. Do not do your SLOs before you right size. So the funny thing about Kubernetes and cloud is they allow you to have bad hygiene because shit could keep crash looping and no one would know and you'd be like, don't worry, it's not down. But again, it's not right sized. You know, like when you have things that are like pending state and you have CPU issues, it's not because people are doing it wrong. It's because no one has to fix it. The cluster just gets bigger. The cloud just gets bigger. The spend just gets bigger. Same for VMware. Nobody fixed applications because you never broke. You had vMotion, right? Apps never went down. And then when it went down the first time, you're like, oh my God, what the hell do I do? Oh my God, the app is actually brittle. Again, if I do non-production SLOs, I will know the impact of my releases. The reason being is I'll know which ones can be fixed, which ones can't be fixed. And then I know my error budget. Error budgets are guessing. They're non-production validation of error budget impact. Who's doing it today? Nobody. I don't want to go too much into this. I do think it's important that you have SLOs for performance, reliability, and availability. I gave examples of what these things are. How many requests are good? Sometimes services aren't 100% effective. You actually have a percentage of, you know, calls that fail, and it's expected. These are things that you want. I took some screenshots of some of ours. You'll see that there's staging in here. Again, we're not all the way with all of them, but we have SLOs on staging. And then this was a customer which I blanked out. But in reality, yeah, the area that was service levels was blank when I went to it. I was like, what the shit? You have none. And they're like, why? Are they important? Yeah, if you care about your employees. Performance as a service. Again, this is super cool tech. I've put them up at rely.io. They're not too far along, but I'm working with them. SLOs are really not good for performance testing. The reason being is they're 7 days, 15 days, 30 days. Nobody runs that long a performance test, but you need to know, am I achieving the goals that I want for my app? So there's companies like Rely that you can actually set through where they're trying to work on their API. Once their API is done, I think it's super cool. You would just send them an API to say, hey, I have an SLO right now. Here's my SLO criteria, validate it for me. This is where you're advancing technology. This is where it's very helpful. Again, don't spend weeks on QA. I'm sure everybody here knows that, oh, if anybody wants the deck, I'll give it to you. How many people know QA takes a long time? Long time, right? Long time validating results, right? Don't do that anymore. That doesn't make any sense. Like if you have this all within, let's say, Datadog, and you actually collect your telemetry, your logs, your metrics, shit, set an SLO, compare it to the previous version, which I actually think I can pull up on another screen. It's probably the next one. We'll get to that later. Another piece, index your logs longer. If you're using a platform where you don't have logs and telemetry correlated, get rid of all of your tools. If you can't correlate your logs with telemetry and metrics, completely useless tool, completely useless. Again, it's really important for AIs to have a long time of logging and metrics and telemetry so that when it's going to give you a predictive issue, if an issue is longer than you're collecting, it actually doesn't know, okay? I've experienced this. 9 days, I was retaining 7. Oops, didn't see that. Boom, on the 9th day. How come you didn't see it? Oh yeah, you're not retaining the logs so that you could see the error that long is longer. Also, when you test and you do all of this, always do it cold, hot, warm. Every app responds differently to a different state. So when you do your tests, try a cold cluster, a warm cluster, a hot cluster. Again, if you're not using logs that correlate, none of this will work. You'll never fix anything. This is why products that don't have that set or going to sell, don't buy products that can't do it. Deploy with visibility. Okay, so I know this is a little outside of observability, but in reality, you want to track your release health in non-prod, and don't let anybody implement a maintenance window. If you let people implement a maintenance window, you'll never fix anything because all they're doing is ruining your day at the expense of yourself. Don't let anybody do it. Again, categorize the issues. If you're doing observability in non-prod, is it fixable miss? Oops, that was stupid. Okay, let's fix that. That won't happen in prod. We got that. Or outside, error budget, unfixable. This shit isn't happening now. We don't have time to fix it. It's going to break in prod and then cycle that shit because it's brittle. Okay, fantastic. Thanks. Again, user acceptance jobs. If you're going to use Helm or equivalent and you have a Helm test to validate your release, always have acceptance tests for all services. I don't care if you use Flux CD or Argo CD, do have a deployment strategy, blue-green. That way you can compare in the observability tool. This is a screenshot of one. You can compare your versions. Oh shit, one of them really sucks. Yeah, that's great. I can compare it to previous. I don't need to figure it out and log in what's going on. The version's bad. It's here. You need to be doing it in non-prod. This isn't prod impacted. This is just non-prod testing. How many people here run multiple versions in non-production at the same time to compare them? Okay, cool. Get it into your observability stack. If you have an observability stack that can't do this, get rid of your tools. They're shit. Okay, so I put up a plan. If you want to actually achieve this, and I'm pretty serious, this is how I do it many, many times at different companies, including working here. So correct your bad config on your observability platform. Don't even start until you've cleared out all those alerts. I don't know how many people have seen dashboards on their wall with like 52 alerts. Just fix the damn config. It's bad. Why is that alert? Oh yeah, we didn't know what type of expression was required there. Okay, we'll fix it. Forecast non-production budget. Really important. Now, if you can forecast non-production budget, your consumption is going to be higher and you can renew earlier contract. You come back to your vendor and you say, dude, I'm going to add non-prod, you're going to make money. He goes, yeah, I like money. And then you just basically come back and say, I need a higher discount if I'm going to get non-production workloads. These aren't production workloads. Don't charge me the same. Figure this out. Drop the budget costs. Then move to connect all of integration. This is where what they define as FSO in the market. Yeah, connect up all the stuff so you can collect everything. What about non-prod? Yeah, we didn't think of that. And then free POV. Every vendor today will let you do a free POV to figure out how much you're going to consume. So you don't spend $1. We did it. I don't know how much we saved. I think it was like $90,000 on you, vendor. Oh, you want more business? Yeah, we found out all the gaps that we have and now we're pretty good. Next step is synthetics and RUM. The only reason I suggest this is so you can measure correctly, and the synthetics will need SLOs, but they're really complicated. Configuring SLOs are really hard, and having an SLO workbench like the Rely that I was showing is critical for your engineers to understand how to create an SLO. How many people know how to create an SLO on a trace? Not a request, a trace. Yeah, all right. I failed on it. I tried. It was too damn hard. So I got the SLO workbench, and that's why I searched the startup market to find a company to help me. Monitoring as code. How many here deploy their observability platform with their releases, which include synthetics, all as Terraform. Did you know that you could deploy your observability as Terraform? So all the ones that I presented, most of them have Terraform providers for observability. All your synthetics, all your SLOs, all your notification groups, PagerDuty, Terraform, one file. Well, it depends how you want to break it up, but that's fine. Then QA automation is the last target. Once you got this shit done, start doing QA automation for observability. Super important. Highest value outcome for any company. You'll save millions of dollars. Just because QA right now needs these tools to help them, but nobody's selling, and the market's perspective is production. None of this has to do with production. You can use all of this to prevent production outages. Okay, I just wanted to give context. This is a real picture of a YouTube video that I had to watch for someone that I lost. Frontline, his wife sent me it. And I read his poems and things. So it's dedicated to those frontline members that I knew, but we didn't have the practices to actually protect them or recognize that these issues are occurring. It's a lot of stress when you do everything in prod because you don't know what to fix. Now, companies are coming out with products to get in really quick, figure it out really quick. But in reality, the issue shouldn't have happened in the first place. You should have put all the observability in non-prod. And then production issues are very rare. I've run organizations where you had 7 months with thousands of deployments with 100% SLA. Why are we not achieving that? Why is Google posting you can't achieve 100% SLA? It's proven that you can. I have a white paper out there if you want to read how it's achieved. Any questions? I do have like one piece, bad things are out of your control, but you should be very well prepared to deal with them so they don't affect your life. Because you need to be able to tolerate and accept bad. If you're ill-equipped, which is how the market and practices operate today, how vendors operate today, you're not going to cope. And that's what happens to people if they can't cope. They lose weight. If you can't cope with that, you lose more things. Yeah, it was dark, but we can fix it. Any questions? Go ahead.
Before we take any questions, let's give Shlomo a big round of applause.
All right, if I swear. I don't get swear word.
Shlomo, there's also a mic right in your podium.
It's green, even though I'm colorblind.
Oh, so at my current workplace, we have 3 test environments before we even go into prod. So we generally don't have much in the way of issues when deploying to prod, because as you said, if anything breaks along the way, we don't progress and we figure out what the issue is beforehand. Yeah. But one of your slides was that we need to have a lot of logging in non-prod, and recently my employer is deciding to reduce the logging in non-prod to save money. We have Datadog and telemetry, as you pointed out. So what would the argument that I should bring to my company to say we need this?
Yes. So the issue is money. So what can technology do to save you money? If I converge the 3 of these achievements together, no environment needs to persist. Cloud providers will hate you, but in reality, you don't need to keep anything after you've done tests. So your test environments, do they get destroyed after you've done testing with them? Yeah, so what's happening is if you don't treat a rental car like a rental car sitting in your driveway, and you leave it running and you're paying for it, even though you're not using it, it's a waste. Cloud providers love you do that, but in reality, that car should go back when you're done, but we're not doing it. So when you put these principles together, I can't touch existing systems. I make new ones really well, really fast, because I can't touch shit. I can't log into these environments, so my observability is going to get really good. And then the third one, I'm not allowed to deliver value by my hands. Stop doing those 28 manual changes and being a hero. Stop it. Your ego will survive. Create the technology that does the job so you can live your life. The outcome of that is what we call non-persistent non-prod. The environments don't stay. You'll save 44% of your budget on average is non-production environments. When I'm done my test, blow it away. You will get more resilient. I know it sounds crazy, but in reality, you will build better applications, save a lot of money, but the market is there to take your money. It's not there for you to save it. More.
Cool. So one thing I think this is, maybe it's the products that you're working on, but I made games for a while, and there's a lot of emergent behavior complexity that happens out in production that as much, because testing tends to be deterministic so that you can continue to figure it out, you don't get that complexity. And so on production, you run into effects that happen only there at that scale. How do you model that in this system?
There's two parts to that. So one outcome of destroying environments, which is another talk, I just didn't go into it, is that every environment becomes the GitOps equivalent of the other because you're not persisting. Can you imagine your budget if everything was production size and you persisted them all? You'd be a moron. But if you delete them after you're done, now don't think of it as like deleting everything, delete the things you don't need. It's just a job after, oh yeah, when we're done, it's gone. Don't think of it as completely immutable environments. It's not real because there's dependencies. Test data management exists. So I could simulate production load, production quality load on an environment that's equivalent to production. And when I'm done with it, I destroy. If you don't destroy and you copy prod, you'll blow your budget. If you do destroy, you do two things. One, you remove all the manual issues that people have done in environments of drift. Two, you remove all malicious code where somebody puts some picture on the first time run shows a topless person, which I've seen happen. And then the third, yeah, you just save money and the environment gets more resilient. But yeah, all of that gets solved. I know it's a lot. I only could touch on one topic, but if we do all three of these together, you have a lot of economic advantages and you just, SREs live a happy life, which is why I take these roles. So I can impact SREs and not repeat that dedication, because that was when I wasn't strong enough to figure it out. Any more questions? You can ask non-related questions too. I like ad hoc AMAs.
So on your roadmap of technologies coming in the future, I saw low down on the list open telemetry, which I'm a really big fan of. I know it's being incubated by the CNCF. That in line with like dev local first automated provision environments, you know what I mean? Like I'm just going to throw like Coder as one, or Code Server, where you can just spin up your entire environment, have all your telemetry linked in, have your metrics, traces, and logs there. Do you feel like we're heading towards that future where almost like QA doesn't even exist in AWS or Azure or GCP? Like, what does that future of development on the developers end look like? What do you think? Sorry if I wasn't clear.
No, it was. So what's happening in the market, if you go to the APMs directly, it's been years since they've developed packages for languages. When they do develop packages for languages, they spend a lot of money on the development, but they're very rich in comparison to OpenTel. So I actually think OpenTel is undermining the quality of life of the engineers. The reason being is nobody in the open source community is going to spend 4 years on a particular language for the richness across different components, which isn't part of OpenTel yet. So observability, if it doesn't encompass all of the requirements, it has no value because the sum is more than each of the components. Now, OpenTel can't do that because nobody's going to spend their entire career spending years on a particular language, perfecting it so you can actually get across all this telemetry. So do I think we're where we need to be? I think things are getting too complicated. When somebody joked about Kubernetes is really hard, what's happening to humanity is that more complex things become, the less people understand. And then you can't identify who knows their job and who doesn't. And then a disaster just occurs. So I kind of feel like QA being automated, you still need a human in the process, They just should be augmented by the same tools we use. It's just not being sold to the QA. The QA still needs to exist because machines make mistakes. Like in my context, don't ask me on what I think of AI. I know I'm working with these individuals who build it. It's not right. It's really not. And it tells people really bad things too. Like, don't let your kids use it. That's for sure. It won't get there. I don't think we'll reach that capability. Yeah, I'm not against OpenTel. I just think it's preventing R&D by very rich companies because they'll just say, I use OpenTel. I was like, yeah, but I need something for Erlang. And they're like, yeah, we're not spending on that. OpenTel will do it at some point. No, they won't, because Erlang's not a big target for the community. So you get stuck. It's really bad when they don't invest anymore on R&D.
I agree with you actually, because if you're using like TypeScript and JavaScript with OpenTel, there's no ESM support. And so my own team had to figure out how to get ESM support like by ourselves, right? And that takes time, right? And that's time out of my budget. And so I agree with you. I was just thinking that it sometimes, like, especially with like startups or not every company is as big as theScore, right? And so a lot of companies are 20 people, 30 people. And so it democratizes that idea. But I definitely see when it comes to at scale, when you have a company with, let's say, 100 million, 200 million, $300 million of funding, right? And they're cheaping out because, oh, OpenTel does it for free. I do see that there. So I never really considered like paying, size matters, right? In terms of budget for support for the developers, right? So like you're saying, if there's an APM, like let's say Datadog, right? It's better for me to develop with them and get my telemetry from them.
I would go with so it's not the size of the company, it's the amount of traffic that you produce and if your logs are verbose or not. If they're not and they're light and you're a small company, bringing in an APM, which is basically all in one, would be very advantageous to reduce QA costs, reduce SRE outages, reduce the impact on your operational teams, improve the developer happiness, because this is all about happiness. The reason I put happiness is it's currently really sad. Like when I look at the market and I look at organizations, it's sad. I'm targeting happiness because everybody's ignoring badness.
Thank you.
Wow, we can take a couple of more questions.
Hey, thank you very much for the great sessions. So my question is basically how we can monitor, or I mean, if you have any suggestions on matrices or any indicators to measure the success of these heroes, right? So of course we need to make lives easier for everyone, but we all on the same time we need to measure the success as well. So do you have any suggestions on indicators or maybe matrices for that?
So there was a lot, if you're asking for indicators for success to make sure you're measuring the right things, is that the ask?
Exactly.
Yeah, so this is where most people skip. And again, it comes down to Kubernetes hides bad shit well because it scales horizontally and vertically and keeps restarting things. So you could crash a pod 1,000 times and no one would know because I have more of them. So the context behind what is good to measure, the first piece that you need to get is right sizing so that you don't get into a position where you can't afford to spend on observability. Then once you've corrected that, I do think you need to go into production and understand what is reality. For example, I can give examples of this. If you have an application that 98% is success with 200 and then 2% of them is error, you need to set that reliability SLO on non-production and then make sure non-production maintains that. I don't care about prod. Like prod should never see events that are bad unless it's like serious disasters. Data centers go down, software providers go down, not because we were dumb. Like, that's not a good reason. We can fix that. If you go into TPS, transactions per second, generally use, I think I put it up, P95. You don't want outliers Like you don't want P99, like 99% is profiled within here. You take like a 95% of my workloads look like this performance, you set that P95, all the APMs have the ability to set the P95 or whatever number for performance. So my TPS is 5,000 transactions per second, P95, go below that, that's a problem. Availability, everybody knows uptime. Everybody does uptime. If I asked, do you track uptime? You'd be like, yeah, come on, man. Who gives a shit about uptime? You're gonna get called if there's an uptime issue, but you're gonna get called also if you have a performance issue. You're gonna get called if your reliability is wrong because people complain. So why aren't we tracking those? Those are the ones that wake you up. It's not like, oh, all the systems are down. Well, yeah, that does happen if you delete the stack because you thought you were in staging, but you're actually in production. It happens. Yeah, that's bad. That's where GitOps goes wrong. Yeah. Or you delete your aggregate. Again, you thought it was a testing one, but it wasn't.
And we have time for one last question and then we're gonna wrap it up. Or 1.5 question.
Thank you. So you are just, how can I say, offering to run in non-production that can handle the capability or load in the production environment, just replicating production and non-production environment to be safe. But we know that business, let's say today sees this much load, but after, let's say, a week, sales is going well and we get unexpected spike, like really high load. And what do you offer? Let's say you never tested in non-production environment and you are not ready for that. And shit again happens and people jump to databases, create some manual schemas. And what happens? Like, what do you offer? Like, what do you suggest in this situation?
I'll go in 2 different areas. I'll go with a startup that can solve that when it does happen, and I'll go into how you prevent these issues affecting you. So generally I go with, you have to have a definition of degraded and down for every service. Degraded more important, right? What is the definition of degraded for your service? Now what you do is you just do your performance as a service. So you deploy a load generator. Please tell me it's automated, and you have a profile config for each of them. It could just be a config file that gets pushed with the load generator. And then you have profiles that say degraded and down, and you run those tests. You will know at what point your application will fall over. When you know that, you match your HPA below that threshold. You will never come down. You'll just scale. Just be careful. If you scale too much, you'll pay a lot of money, but at least you won't go down. Now, how to handle the HPAs? There are companies out there that do what we call smart HPAs. And what they're doing is taking Keta. I don't know if people are familiar with Keta. It's event-driven HPA scaling. There are companies that are now putting machine learning on top of that to predict loads, or allow you to create calendar events that say, this day is going to be freaking horrible. I want you to take all the limits off in GitOps and Argo. I want you to scale this shit up for me in a service map methodology, so you don't just scale up one. So like HPAs today, in your circumstance, when they spike, the reason they fail is not that the HPA failed, it's that the HPA is sequential. It's not parallel. It doesn't understand that if I scale this service, I'm going to bust the service below because it can't handle the load. So they do service maps for HPAs now so that you can scale topologies. And then they're adding intelligence on top of that using event-driven scaling so that you'll scale the correct way. So again, test degraded, test load, configure your HPAs to scale before that pod or app breaks, right? Because every app has a limit. And then it doesn't matter how big Black Friday is or how big Super Bowl is, as long as you tell it to take your limits off for those days. Not every day, because you'll get a deep shit when you blow $3 million. But you can take it off for the days the business says, spend anything you want. It will save our ass. Black Friday for retail, Super Bowl for sports, or March Madness. These things, take that off. I don't even want anybody online either. The reality is GitOps should occur based on planned and unplanned events in a calendar. We know Super Bowl is going to happen. Should I be there scaling it? No, that's stupidity. Have it Do that for me. Have a calendar. Add a calendar to an HPA. Ooh, crazy. Again, those technologies are not fully baked yet, but I'm working on them with it.
And time for that half question before we wrap it up.
Thank you for your speech. And getting back to APMs. So Datadog recently had a downtime, and one of the follow-ups they had is no more automatic updates. I'm not sure if you're aware what happened, right?
Yeah, we had an outage similar to it. It was
So-
cloud related. Yeah, they
Could you
pushed out.
probably comment on that one, because they're breaking all three principles at once by saying only manual updates and no like doing it in automatic manner on pre-prod.
Sorry, so the question is, how do you rely on a service that doesn't eat their dog food and they're called Datadog? Oh, yeah, woof. Would be what they would say. They always write me woof in Slack channel. Look, every organization is going to have catastrophic events. You can't prevent catastrophic events. You can't prevent hurricanes. You can't control Mother Nature. So yeah, fires happen, disasters happen, war happens. They blow up your data center. What you got? You worry about your life. When Datadog goes down and the observability platform goes down, I mean, in that circumstance, stop releasing.
Besides that, they said they won't have any automatic updates for security. So.
Oh yeah, they're not following the principles. Yeah, you look at it. Yeah, I was familiar with it. We had some clusters affected. Yeah, we were affected by it too. We just recognized that they were affected by it. We knew. They just didn't figure it out. We figured it out within like 30 minutes. But yeah, they're not following principles. Like these principles aren't a joke. Like if you follow these principles, you will be the most elite IT organization on planet Earth. We're just not doing this. CISO's more worried about information being stolen. Yeah, we're not going to go into each of these, but yeah, these roles are not generally filled by people of significant technology understanding.